Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a product. If we examine his thought processes, even the statements he makes, he is a product of the RSS. Look, the Bharatiya Janata Party today appears to be a central command structure, but there are other individuals in the party who also want their place in the sun someday. I'm not going to get into names right now, but I think there's one person who would obviously want to be in, and who could escalate the...
And do you mean Mr. Amit Shah, or do you mean Yogi Adityanath?
No, I don't mean Amit Shah.
Do you mean Yogi Adityanath?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Let's imagine, let's war game this. Let's imagine that Mr. Kharge had been named as a prime ministerial contender to take on Mr. Modi. Would anything have been different?
Muslims are still the target. They are still the face against which the BJP positions its campaign.
It's a very Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar kind of realpolitik, right? The point is, Shivraj can be removed without a murmur or maybe just a slight murmur of discontent because clearly this is Modi's BJP right now.
Over Nitish, I believe, and this is not that somebody told me this happened, I believe that Mamta actually was the star player in fixing him. Nitish also spoke to her very rudely inside some of the meetings.
Saba, there's been so much conversation about the BJP under Vajpayee and the BJP under Modi and how those two BJPs might be very different. And that's the precise subject of your new book that looks at the Saffron Storm and, looks at the years from Vajpayee to Modi. As somebody who's pretty much spent your entire journalistic life reporting on the insides of the BJP, if you had to focus on one key difference between that BJP and this BJP politically, not as a journalist, but politically, what is that difference?
It would have to be two.
Okay.
One is coalition era to single party rule. The minute Narendra Modi comes to Delhi, we get the BJP has a simple majority. So in the slowly the allies drift away. Vajpayee ran a coalition. Then the personalities of the people at the helm. Vajpayee's personality was that of a parliamentarian. As a Jansang MP, he came through the parliamentary system. He respected the norms of parliament. He debate and dissent, and actually by the time he becomes prime minister, he's much older. We've actually not seen his best performances, the kind of performances that had Nehru saying, this young man will go far, that had Jawaharlal Nehru. So he's a different product. He's a product of a different kind of politics, even though it's opposition politics. Whereas Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a product. If we examine his thought processes, even the statements he makes, he is a product of the RSS. But he too he's a phenomenal achiever. So Atal Bihari Vajpayee achieves in Parliament, and Narendra Modi achieves in the organization part of the BJP, and that is one part of his persona that we do not pay enough attention to.
So let's pick up this point about moving from coalition to a single party era. There's a lot of debate and there's been no consensus on this question. Was Vajpayee really the moderate to Narendra Modi's more, some would say, extreme politics? Or was it simply that Vajpayee did not have the numbers to implement all of the sort of pet projects of the RSS that the Modi government has now put into motion, right? 370, the Ayodhya Mandir being two top ones. We could be looking at a uniform civil code. If not now, then after the elections, let's see. Now, these were always in the BJP manifesto.
Absolutely.
Let's be fair. It's not that they have appeared in the manifesto after Modi, right? Is it that Vajpayee was never really the moderate that liberals today look at, through a CPR-tinted rearview mirror, and he simply didn't have the numbers? Or philosophically, ideologically, do you find the two to be quite different?
I think Vajpayee was, if we study some of the earlier books, even before I got to cover him, if we read some of the books about him, and he was ideologically, he had an ideological orientation. But I think his personality was such that he got along with people of differing opinions, and he was a compromised individual, and he was really a fine parliamentarian. He really had skills in that department. And if we look at the statements of Lal Krishna Advani, who was the strategic thinker of that era BJP, he says that Vajpayee was necessary because he was not acceptable. He virtually says that.
Advani was not acceptable.
Yes. Advani virtually, if you read his texts and whatever, you will realize it is a strategic thinking that Advani is seen as the person who's leading the Ram Mandir charge, and the BJP does not have a numbers. If you recall, the numbers in those days always stuck at 183 MPs, 182, 183 MPs. When Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. Vajpayee had the achievement, one very important achievement is that he led the first coalition in India which completed a term. 98 to 99, it falls, the government falls. Jaitley pulls out. But then the next one that's voted in with more or less the same numbers stays in power for 6 months. So he runs an amazing coalition. He runs a very successful coalition.
And that in a way tempers his politics also.
That also tempers his politics, and I don't think that he was an intolerant in the kind of person that he was. He had shades. Vajpayee is harder to define in a black or white face. He has many shades of grey, even as a human being, even in his personal life, even in the way he would meet people, even in his lack of vindictiveness towards journalists who were apparently critical of him. He didn't have all those areas. He was different. He was an individual, I believe, who had a lot of shades of grey in him.
We'll come to that, but I think one of the very brilliant phrases that you have coined, and it's in your new book, is looking at India as a post-geo landscape. And now, just to explain to our viewers what we're talking about a digital data consumption society. We're talking about geo of reliance coming and slashing tariffs to a degree where suddenly millions of people have access to cheap data. And this means that everybody can consume content, right? Yes. And I think somewhere in your book, you say the joke is that data is cheaper than atta. But this idea, we've looked at a post-Modi politics, a post-liberalization politics. We've never really looked at a post-geo India.
Absolutely.
And how that has shaped or reshaped politics. Talk a little bit about that.
So I'm absolutely convinced that, just to elaborate, I believe that in 2017, 2018, Geo gets its clearances and we have data, we have articles saying that India's richest man is bringing about a telecommunication revolution.
Yeah.
And at that time, Amitabh Cant also puts out a tweet in the public domain.
That India and China together consume
so much of data.
No, India consumes more data than China and US combined.
Yes. Now, so what does Geo achieve actually? Geo, the prices of data consumption crash in India.
Yeah.
They completely crash. So that, subsequently many of them struggle, but they take it across the countryside. Now in my home, I've had somebody there with me since my daughter was born. But she could not communicate with her villagers in Jharkhand daily on a video call, but that happens today, right? That's just, I'm just giving you an example of the home. But so everybody suddenly had the cheapest data in the world was available in India. Now you travel frequently, Barkha. You've just returned from New York. Are you seeing the situation with data in these Western countries? Either you pay a lot or you don't get it.
That's right.
And in America, it's actually bizarre. We are better connected in terms of data than they are in certain
clusters. And I think everybody sees the data revolution, but I think till you framed it as a post-geopolity, nobody really saw the links to politics. Now the BJP masterfully, it has to be said, masterfully moves into this space. One, Modi has never been a fan of the English media. He's always believed since he was Gujarat Chief Minister that the media was unfair to him. Yeah. Two, he realizes possibly, I don't know, that there's a huge potential here. And the BJP literally takes over that space in direct political communication.
And I think, if I actually analyze Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because we forget that he was Chief Minister for 3 terms. And he was a unique Chief Minister also.
Yeah.
He goes in as a chosen person. And to Gujarat, and then he gets elected 1 term, 2nd term, 3rd term. Each term he has a different motive for his election campaign, which I've covered in the book.
That's right.
Each term. So one is the Hindutva, Hindu Hriday Samrat in the post 2002 scenario. The next is Vibrant Gujarat. Next is the great creator of New Gujarat. And then the third theme becomes Vivekananda and Modi and, and so on and so forth.
Do you see similar leitmotifs
Yes,
as
so I'm
in his
getting
three
there.
terms as Prime Minister? Yes.
And to do so and to prevail over all the other power centers in the local BJP of Gujarat, and to prevail over even the centers of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, who, he did in Gujarat. To manage, he knew at least his own path was cut out. He knew how to use technology. He knew how to ignore the media.
That's right.
And to prevail. So I'm not saying that's a great thing, but I'm just analyzing him dispassionately. So I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi always knew the implications of having a data revolution in India. He always knew the implications of his own messaging, his own image building. He has always understood it. And it's not that the whole party sits down and they have these brilliant thoughts. I truly believe that he drives his own messaging. He drives his own image projection. It is he himself, and the others execute his plans. Even when I was researching for the bit about the 2014 campaign, which begins in 2013, a lot of NRIs get involved in it.
Yeah.
With messaging, with interesting messaging, interesting Gujarati NRIs. Some of them come and live in India for six months, and some of these details are in the book. So he drives himself. Look, Prashant Kishore, everybody says he's this, and I know him, and he's extremely bright, and he's so interesting to talk to, but Modi found him. Modi is the one who discovered Prashant Kishore. Prime Minister Narendra Modi did discover him when he was in Gujarat.
Yeah.
And he brings him on. So in this one area, I think the Prime Minister has always known the implications of how to message about himself through technology. And I have no doubt that he knew the implications of Geo.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the least commented, least researched area when we try and decode why Modi wins elections.
And no, but I also want to elaborate because following up on what my own conclusion was, I would ask in places that and I would discover, for instance, in the Bengal election, which was an assembly election, I would discover that the BJP for each seat had created a new WhatsApp group and a cluster to generate
for
content
each single constituency.
For each constituency in Bengal. That's what I was told in certain constituencies, that they're giving people. So not only did they know the implications of the cell phone in your hand, and they also knew that local level politics, which is more essential in an assembly election. And I'm talking about the assembly election of Bengal, when there was when the BJP, even though it did not defeat Mamata Banerjee, and there was a lot of hype that it would, but in the end, they have replaced everyone else as the opposition. They are the main opposition in Bengal. And they are going into the Lok Sabha election of 2024 as the main opposition. So they know now. But I really believe that Narendra Modi's campaigns are driven by Narendra Modi himself.
Very interesting. Now, to come to this idea that you said that in his 3 terms as chief minister, every term in Gujarat had a different leitmotif. Now, if you were to apply that to national politics, there's Modi 2014 to 19, 2019 to 2024, and it looks likely that there will be a 3rd term. That's what the polls suggest. That's what our political instincts perhaps suggest. Do you see a kind of evolution even because, like, for example, he came talking about the Constitution being his holy book. Then 2nd term, very much sort of the mandir was, up in front, a key issue. Nobody quite knows which direction he'll go in his 3rd term. Will he be more conciliatory? Will he do an outreach with the Muslim community, as some might expect? Or will he double down on Hindutva politics? Because in many ways, the mandir marks the culmination, the end of one phase of Hindutva politics. What we do not know is what the next phase might look like.
So here's what I think. In terms of first, let me just, if you'd allow me, let me look at the messaging motives. The first time was just an absolute strongman, absolute leader. He comes to India and he also says Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas.
That's right.
But it's about a projection of a strong leader, which has resonance through the electoral, through the ballot box. We are seeing that also. We can critique it and we can say that authoritarian figures are coming through the ballot box, and it has been said. But the point is they are coming through the ballot box.
He wins fair and square.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So he comes in, it's about himself. The second election, when it is believed there is some of a contest, 2019, the Pulwama Balakot cycle of events happen, and it is a hyper-nationalistic election about national security and so on and so forth. For this election, there are two motives already in place. One is Ram Mandir for sure. One is Vishwaguru, world leader.
And
world
India's
leader,
place in the world.
India's place in the world and Ram Mandir. These are the motives. Now, we have to then examine the numbers that we end up with. Presuming, and we cannot be certain, presuming that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have a third term, we have to look at the numbers, because the changes will be possible if there is a 2/3 majority in Parliament.
Yeah.
And the next year is also the 100th anniversary of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh.
Interesting.
And that is an important date for them.
Yeah.
So there are those who say that we already are effectively a Hindu Rashtra. And but we are not legally a Hindu Rashtra.
The state does not have a religion. Policies do not discriminate on the basis of faith.
So that's what I'm saying. But if the numbers stack up to a point where you can actually bring about certain constitutional changes, and there is a lot of speculation on that, but there is no certainty, because it again depends on the numbers. It depends on the BJP's own numbers. What are they? And and then I think we can, but there are interesting things happening otherwise.
But equally, this could go in either direction, right? So there is, as you said, the country is not a Hindu Rashtra in any technical sense of the word, right? You suggest that if there is a massive majority for the BJP, there could be constitutional changes. I am saying the one thing I've picked up just by observing the Prime Minister is he almost enjoys disrupting or defying the expectation. So if somebody thinks A will happen, somehow B happens, right? Do you think, hypothetically, given the outreach with the Pasmanda Muslim community, given the outreach with, you certainly had the chadar being presented for the Ajmer Dargah, you had Christian leaders being met on Christmas, you've actually seen Pasmanda Muslim candidates being fielded in the UP local elections. Could this go another way?
So I think that, presuming that Prime Minister Narendra Modi prevails in the next election, I certainly think he would have a pitch from which he would not want matters to escalate. Mm-hmm. But then there are other people also.
But isn't he the person in control?
No, he would be in control up to a point. But look, the Bharatiya Janata Party today appears to be a central command structure. But there are other individuals in the party who also want their place in the sun someday. I'm not going to get into names right now. But I think there's one person who would obviously want to be in, and who could escalate the...
And do you mean Mr. Amit Shah, or do you mean Yogi Adityanath?
No, I don't mean Amit Shah.
Do you mean Yogi Adityanath?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
I do. So now, if you look at the internal dynamics of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Barkha, right now, almost all state leadership is subservient to Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Except Adityanath.
Except Adityanath.
The only chief minister they possibly can't replace at will.
They can't replace him at will, and he's popular.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Uttar Pradesh, and whether it's not about my choices, I know that he's popular in the state.
Yeah.
So, and that state is the basis of your numbers.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? He's only in his 50s. He has ambitions, and I'm certainly not implying Amit Shah right now, because Amit Shah is the executioner of what the Prime Minister wants. Now, if you noted a few things, okay, here I'm
So hang on. You don't see Modi and Shah like we used to in our salad days as reporters see Advani and Vajpayee. In the hierarchy of the government, Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, Advani was the deputy. And there was a kind of yin and yang, slight good cop, bad cop, soft hawk and dove, if the whole sort of loh purush to the soft consensus building Vajpayee. Here also, there are two opinions. And somewhere, because there's such little access to the actual inner workings of the party, we're all guessing. One suggests that this is a jugalbandi. The other suggests that this is a completely hierarchical relationship. Which one do you see it as?
I think it's, I think we have completely transcended. There's no jugalbandi. Narendra Modi is on top.
Yeah.
Everybody is way below him. There is nothing like what we saw in the Vajpayee era. Vajpayee, you could go and talk to someone in the PMO and then walk across to the Home Ministry and then get a completely opposite point of view. You know that.
That's right.
I still have my PIB card, but there's no one you can access any longer. So it's sort of, there is absolutely nothing. We are living We are in the age of the grand leader, the absolute leader.
And yet you're arguing that the central command system could change.
No, I'm saying that doesn't mean that the central command, that there is human nature and ambition just goes away. Let's not forget what has just happened after the recent assembly election.
Yeah.
Now that, I'll elaborate. So first of all, you look at the Bharatiya Janata Party and the way it has treated state leaders.
Yeah.
Number one, they've had a traditional state leader, be it Shivraj Chauhan of Madhya Pradesh, Vasundhara Raje in Rajasthan, Yedurappa in Karnataka.
Mm-hmm.
So they replaced Yedurappa. Okay, he's always an autonomous kind of a character. He's a strongman of his influential caste, the Lingayat caste, which is truly influential in Karnataka. They replace him and they get another guy called Bommai to sit there. But Yedurappa has a true influence in those regions. They lose an election. Anyway, that happens in 2023. Then they move on to the next round of elections. All right. And they have no leadership in Chhattisgarh, apparently, because Raman Singh, the former BJP chief minister, is no longer of any importance. Shivraj Singh Chauhan has stuck it out. He's still there. And they completely bypass Vasundhara Raje.
Yeah.
She's there. If you travel in Rajasthan, she's one of the 4 faces on the posters.
Yeah.
But the person they choose is not even on the posters. He's not even one of the 4 faces. There used to be Modi on top, and there would be two. I used to wonder, ye kaun hai? Ye kaun hai? I knew who was in the ride. I used to say, taxi wala se main puchhi, ye kaun hai? Those 4 faces with him. But the person they chose was unknown to the
Delhi media.
To Delhi media. And the person they chose in Madhya Pradesh was unknown apparently to all of Bhopal media also. This is what they tell me, and they've chosen differently. So what happens?
And yet with careful social engineering, right?
Yes,
Brahmin, Adivasi,
and Yadav.
And Yadav.
And Yadav. And OBC in Yadav. And I think that's a little interplay with UP because there's such a long border between MP and MP and Uttar Pradesh. So they've done that. They've given social consideration. But what happens to the traditional leadership? In all of this, the decision that was a bit shocking was a Shivraj decision because he's an OBC himself. Number 2, they won by such a huge margin.
Yeah.
He had been chief minister there. We all know that his Ladli Behna and all had resonance, even though there were narratives of it all being...
there being a fatigue factor with Shivraj and
He was removed. Now, if we can say that a precedent has been created in the Bharatiya Janata Party, that in the hypothetical future, a leader can be removed at the will of the High Command.
Yeah.
Shivraj, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you have created a precedent to remove effectively a popular leader.
But it's a very Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar kind of realpolitik, right? The point is, Shivraj can be removed without a murmur or maybe just a slight murmur of discontent because clearly this is Modi's BJP right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And Yogi might be popular in UP, but you seem to suggest that you actually see him as in the near to medium future a possible competitor for the national stage?
You're not going that far.
I'm
not going that far.
Okay.
I'm just saying that Yogi cannot be just pushed around like the others can. It is interesting. Now, so I want to link up back to Yedurappa. So Yedurappa is dismissed, they lose the state. But they're smart enough to know. They're smart enough to know that we erred, and now his son is back to being, Vijendra is back to being the state unit president.
That's right.
As we head to the Lok Sabha election, they want to scatter the Lingayats around. So here I'm coming back to where Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes corrections also. He made a correction in the case of Karnataka. And so I'm just saying that it's not as if when you have a supreme leadership sort of prevailing over a party which was used to having state centers, then and I don't see that applicable in the near future in Uttar Pradesh because of the nature of the individual there. So we'll have to see the scale of the mandate, the scale of the support for Prime Minister Modi. But because there is evidence that the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister has on occasion not listened to New Delhi.
Yeah.
There have been differences over...
Not working with the officers sent from the PMO and so on.
Even the matter of Braj Bhushan Sharan Singh, I will not get into the details, but he's not happy with the way it has played out.
But that's also because Brijbhushan Saran Singh has been a critic of Yogi Adityanath, not necessarily anything
Not necessarily
else.
for the gender reason.
That's right.
Yeah.
But let's step back and look at this idea of social engineering. There is Modi, the cult of personality around Modi, the popularity of the Prime Minister, but your own book talks about the end of the trope that the BJP is an upper caste Brahminical party, and that how the real shift is how Dalits and tribals are now endorsing the politics of the BJP, particularly in the Hindi-speaking states of India. And you couple it with the sort of dysfunctional decline, as you call it, the dysfunctionality of Mayawati and the BSP as a force for mobilization among Dalits. How did this happen? Obviously, the BJP has always wanted the idea of the Hindu consolidation and would want a non-fractured Hindu identity vote. But that's actually not happened. It's not as if the Hindu is voting as the Hindu. It's that they're actually able to speak to different constituencies with different programs. So talk about that, because it's a very important shift in politics.
I think it is a very important shift, and what the Bharatiya Janata Party has managed to do is to catch them on their vulnerabilities.
Which is
financial scams. Mayawati is scared to be an active
you mean that the leaders like Mayawati have been caught on their vulnerability?
Now, the point about the Dalits is the most interesting, actually, because, when you travel out for election coverage, I have noted this, that there are certain social groups which will never actually tell you till you really find out
who they're going to vote for.
And the weaker you are in your land owning and caste capacity, the less likely you want to be confronted by a reporter saying kisko vote doge.
That's right.
Because you don't want to honestly talk about it. So the Dalit shift that takes place, to an extent, not all of it, in the last assembly election in UP happened very quietly, and many people could not even predict it. But it happened, because if you notice, if you go back to the assembly election, the SP front gives quite a fight. They get 36% of the vote, I think. And the BJP has a 10% lead. But guess which party drops 10%?
It's BSP.
BSP. From 22% vote share, they drop to 12% vote share.
Yeah.
So, and their voters, it's not that their voters were coming out and telling reporters that we are going to go and vote for BJP. Now, there are always reasons. There are complex reasons in a state like UP. When you are an aggressive agrarian caste, when you're a Jat or a Yadav, when you're a landowning, when you have a Lathayat kind of a person in the Hindi belt, then actually you could be the immediate oppressor sometimes for the Dalit. And now that the Bharatiya Janata Party is also giving out a ration outreach, I don't think they have been able to create jobs and create structures which generate a lot of employment. But in these parts of the country, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, there is a level of poverty where ration does count.
Yeah.
Getting that ration makes a difference. And people, when they're fundamentally poor, they also want to ensure they take their vote much more seriously than the elites do. Elite voting can sometimes be, I don't feel like going out. Who's going to stand in a queue? They are waiting for that day to vote. And they also don't want to waste it. Let's say their heart is with Mayawati, but she's not going to win.
So do you actually believe that Mayawati has become dysfunctional? I'm borrowing a word from your book, because she's scared of the Enforcement Directorate and other investigative agencies? Or do you believe that there was a certain saturation point in the kind of politics that Mayawati was playing? She was not able to expand her social base, right? What the BJP has been able to successfully do is to court the Dalit while the Prime Minister is reaffirming his position as an OBC, while the Mandir movement is looking at a consolidated Hindu identity. It's all happening on parallel tracks, and you need an expanded social base to win elections.
So no, I think in Mayawati's case, she has a very transferable vote, which is extraordinary. It can attach to anyone, but she has to be out there in the game. Right now, even as I know that the Congress is desperate to have an alliance with her, as opposed to the SP. They keep talking about it, but she's not even responding. she seems to have till this point decided to be out of the game, or she'll just give some ticket distribution in the end. We can't make out. But she is a +1 addition. But these were people who, because of their presence in politics, they brought about radical social changes at one point.
Yes.
To the way Dalits, again, I go back to the fact that even though I'm raised in Delhi, my family's from UP and I go to the village home, the level of Dalit oppression that was par for the course is no longer there, because at some point people like Mayawati took control of power. Even those Ambedkar statues which are critiqued, I'm not talking about the ones in Lucknow, but the ones in the countryside, they were a symbol of we have also arrived. We also have a right to water.
An iconography of our own.
Yes, an iconography. So all of these things, but we are in a beyond that situation right now.
Yeah.
Because the Bharatiya Janata Party at this point has such phenomenal application. They have a lot of cadres. They have a lot of resources. We cannot ignore that. They have a lot of funds and they are involved, and they have a civilizational project which is larger than just the immediacy of win and loss of an election. But the win and loss of an election is part of the structure of the civilizational project, and they work hard at it.
So when Vajpayee was Prime Minister and you were a very active reporter reporting on the BJP, did you at that time also believe that they had a civilizational project?
No.
What was the difference?
I just thought they were sort of right. They looked like the sort of our Desi version of the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
With some Hindutva ideas thrown in, who were just going to be gentlemen in the club of Indian politics also.
So were you right looking back? Because there was the Govindacharya, whom you refer to in your book, who famously called Vajpayee the Makhota.
Yeah.
The mask.
But the thing is, Vajpayee, he didn't like Vajpayee, but Govind himself was so likable.
But the point is, as journalists, we know this, that we're okay to disagree with people as long as they engage with us in an open way, right? And I would say that in many ways, the Atal Bihari era of the BJP, they enjoyed a good joust with you. They enjoyed a good argument. And they were almost much more, and not almost, I would say much more than, let's say, the Gandhis controlled Congress that actually didn't give you that open access.
Not at all. No. I had look, there's no doubt about it, because the BJP gets replaced by the UPA.
Yes.
It's not that I don't have friends in the UPA, but the BJP was a delight to cover.
It was a friendly, and they leaked against each other all the time.
They were leaking stories, and figures like Pramod Mahajan, who dies in 2005. Remember, his brother shoots him and all. And then, of course, Arun was a delight. He was just full of
stories.
He had witty one-liners about his own colleagues, which is all off the record, and now he's gone. I've never seen a politician in all my years of covering politics who was so friendly and so affable with those people that he liked, and who had a sense of humor about his own colleagues.
Yeah.
He did. So he was a delight. And then there were all these, characters. Govindacharya was a delight. Vajpayee himself, though he went around striking these sort of sleepy poses and all, was also...
even Advani, who was considered the harshest amongst them, was quite happy to have a very amiable disagreement with you. Now, here's my question. When you think of these three BJP leaders who were then called second-generation BJP leaders, Sushma Swaraj, Pramod Mahajan, Arun Jaitley.
All gone,
All gone, tragically, before their time.
Yeah.
Do you believe, Arun Jaitley in particular, and you bring this up in your book, do you believe that this BJP, the Modi BJP, that has never been that interested in creating consensus, do you believe it would have been a different BJP?
Had they lived?
Had Arun Jaitley in particular. Sushma Swaraj also had cross-party relationships. Pramod Mahajan was also a master of sort of machinations, right? So do you believe that it would have been...
See, Pramod and Modi just didn't get along.
Yeah.
I know that.
But that was then,
But then he dies in 2005. And Narendra Modi comes to Delhi in 2013. He plans his whole own campaign to become the PM face, and he prevails quite magnificently. He wins that election, and he brings the BJP to the era of single party rule, which is an epic moment. Arun Jaitley in particular has a very interesting role in all of this, and I've got into it in detail.
Talk a little bit about it.
So Arun and Modi, which I never understood. The one person about him whom he never cracked a joke was Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
And well before he was Prime
And
Minister.
much before, it was something which we don't understand, because even during the Vajpayee era, if you recall, Vajpayee had problems with Modi.
Yeah.
There was this famous National Council in Goa where there was this, but Arun was the one who was always on Modi's side when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister and Modi was the Chief Minister. And then the Vajpayee PMO was very annoyed with Jaitley, and all those details are in my book, and I was caught up in that crossfire of one side giving me a story and another side giving me a story, and then one side wanting to know who said what.
Yeah.
All that stuff was going on. So Arun was this self-made, he did not inherit his
That's right.
flourishing practice. He was a brilliant lawyer, and he goes around very talkative, very friendly. He has his own circle of friends, all of whom are not ideological equals of him. So whatever it was, for me, I was able to strike a rapport with him, and he was accessible, and he would often call up and say, why are you sounding like this, that kind of jokes after some TV show or something. But when Prime Minister Modi comes to Delhi, a lot of the people who are now important, they were all people that Arun actually got them, be it Nirmala, Piyush, Goyal. These were all people who knew Arun much better than they knew Prime Minister Modi.
Yes.
Dharmendra Pradhan was one of them.
Yes.
These were the individuals.
Yeah.
So Arun was extremely crucial in those years when at one moment he has finance and defense, both these ministries. Yeah. But that was also when his health started to decline, Barkha.
Yeah.
And I remember when when he reads out the first finance budget in Parliament, I remember he looked very tired. And then he went to his room, and I used to go to Parliament those days, which is now a very difficult proposition to do. And I went to his room, and he was so exhausted. His health problems started to escalate at that time.
Yeah.
And he had a few people there. He had even organized food for people to come there.
Yeah.
And but his health started to decline, and I have no idea had he dies in 2019, a few months after the second term begins.
Yeah.
Now, the question that's always remained in my mind, because he still had a grip on besides the ministries that he ran, what he was really good at was being a spin doctor and in maintaining equations with owners, with proprietors, and with the select journalists that he chose to.
That's right.
And he kept it interesting. He kept his mix interesting. He had kept a whole lot of people who literally transcribed everything he would say. Yeah. And, he perhaps did not invite them for his dinners. And then he kept the independent journalists.
That's right.
Also, whom he could have exchanges with. So he was a true spin doctor. This person for this kind of thing for that. And then he suddenly sort of passes away in this very young sort of way, and this very cheerful, talkative man who could not stop talking actually. If you see him, he goes, but then the BJP's media policy also becomes much more inaccessible unless you are a complete bhakt.
I agree. Was he though in some ways the last Lutyens Delhi BJP politician?
Could be, because he was certainly Lutyens Delhi.
100%.
100%. Even though his party is about, he was certainly Lutyens Delhi, and with all his dinners of Kashmiri kebabs and 70 dishes.
And there's this great story that when the GST Council couldn't reach a consensus, right? The GST Council had members of all parties, and Arun was chairing that as finance minister, and then he said, okay, I can't break them this way, I'm going to cater food, some Kashmiri kebab, some Amritsari khana, and all the rest of it, the great stories. But much as we all sort of enjoyed knowing Arun Jaitley, one of the most contentious policies of this government, electoral bonds, which you deal with in your book, just struck down by the Supreme Court. Do you think, of course, it's reaffirming of a constitutional principle, the Supreme Court verdict, but do you think it really, even you emphasize a lot on the resource richness of the BJP, right? And the corporate backing for the BJP. And in fact, you make this interesting point that the Congress has more individuals giving it money than big business houses. But isn't it true that big business has always supported whoever is the sort of the winning side? Yeah, there's no ideological backing here. Business houses will always back who they think is going to win the election.
So, but what has happened now, so we had Congress domination of politics for so many years, and then we had coalition eras, right?
Yeah.
So big business was giving to whosoever was likely to be in power. But in the age of the Modi era BJP, not the Vajpayee era BJP. I don't think Vajpayee and all understood finances. Vajpayee certainly did.
Yeah.
Who did it for him? It would be Pramod Mahajan, Arun Jaitley, all
Correct.
these guys would do it.
Correct.
Vajpayee certainly would have nothing to do with money.
Yeah.
He was interested in Pakistan,
Yeah.
foreign policy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but we're looking at a different consciousness
Yeah.
that comes to New Delhi.
Yeah.
And so what has happened is that, and the Congress was so privileged in its right to rule in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't mean it disparagingly, but they probably never thought that this could happen to them, is that they refused to even bring public scrutiny to political finance. Even they didn't do it, but they extended that to everyone.
In fact, one of the points your book reminds us, and I think it bears saying out loud, is that many of the policies that today the opposition is a victim of were brought in the UPA time. An amendment to the Money Laundering Act,
Yes.
right, to start
Yeah.
with, the opacity around corporate funding.
Yes.
These are just examples.
absolutely.
The UAPA, let's not
Yeah.
forget that, the
Yeah,
anti-terror
absolutely.
act. But go on. Yes.
Go on. So the Congress probably in its own approach, even though it should have had 30 years of realizing that this approach is wrong,
Yeah.
but then it does come back in the Manmohan Singh era. Anyway, they don't extend RTI and all to political parties funding.
Yeah.
They don't do that. Here comes the BJP, which is hungry, which does not have a civilizational memory of being in power.
Yeah.
It is out to put aside Lathians, so-called. It comes with a
Break the
simple-
Khan Market gang.
Break the Khan Market gang. And it comes in, and now the way they have extended it is that they will get the money. However, everybody's giving it to them, but they don't extend any mercy to the others. So
It's not like the others can also be funded.
No. The others now, it is either my way or the highway. So what has happened? It's actually, Barkha, in the end, our political system has been hollowed out. It's not just the BJP is able to hit it so hard because we've hollowed it out with this sort of money coming into it. That's why criminals are there. That's why there are policies which benefit individuals more than people. All of this happens because for years we've been cronyism, we are good at it.
That's right.
Jugaad politics, cronyism, we've been doing it. So people are hollowed out. So if the Bharatiya Janata Party sends people to go with with the durbeen and to catch all the corrupt guys in the opposition, they'll find them. It'll happen.
Yeah.
In the terms, and so now what you have no equal ground. You don't have a level playing field. All the political finance is headed in one direction. And people barely give these guys. In a strange way, even the electoral bonds verdict, if you look at the story of the TMC, for instance,
Yeah.
I think the TMC I know they are going to say that they're happy with the verdict, but I think they were quite comfortable.
Third largest recipient of electoral bonds.
They were comfortable with the electoral bond. This is not good news for them because they are also in the line. How do you get
Under
money?
scrutiny.
Under
now,
scrutiny.
Yeah.
So the electoral bonds made it possible for them to also get money.
So here's my question. You talk a lot in the book, and this is a familiar argument that is often made by critics of this government, that it isn't a level playing field to compete on. That said, with all the advantages that the BJP has today, there was a time 10 years ago when the Congress had exactly the same advantages. Basically, as I see it cynically, corporates will lean towards whatever they think is the winning side. They don't really have any ideological skin in the game. Do you not think that the real problem is that you have this cult of personality? The real problem from an opposition perspective is that you have this cult of personality around Mr. Modi. You have multiple ideologies that the BJP plays on: nationalism, Hindutva, the social engineering, the welfare schemes, the rations. And then you have no who on the other side, you don't have a what on the other side, and you don't have a why on the other side. What are they saying they are? Isn't that more of a problem than the ED and the resources?
I think that is a part of the problem, and I think they had a chance and they completely blew it.
With the India Alliance?
With the India Alliance, there is a chance. There is a very good articulate argument you can make for federalism in India. There is every reason to do so. Barkha, we are the only country where democracy is practiced. Tell me, in multiple languages.
Yeah.
In US, it'll be, Trump and Biden will be all be speaking in English. We are talking multiple languages, multiple scripts, multiple zones. So we have a fantastic tapestry in our democracy.
Yeah.
So there was a chance to make it about federalism, united oppositions. We've had very healthy economic growth during the eras of coalition. And I mean both Manmohan Singh and Vajpayee. Which is why Vajpayee and all Pramod Mahajan misled them into thinking that India is shining. India is shining. They overplayed that hand because we've had a healthy economic growth under coalition governments in India. So but they've just blown it. But the part of the reason is they've blown it because they've been hollowed out, I believe, by their own fears, their own terrors of agencies and who will be caught. And as somebody said to me very crudely of some of the defections from the Congress, some which didn't happen, some which happened, is that people in old age, they don't want to land up in ED, they don't want to land up in jail. Now, if you look at the events in Maharashtra, it's quite clear. I mean, till the other day, the Bharatiya Janata Party is calling Ajit Pawar corrupt. Now he's the chief minister. They're getting after him on irrigation scam. Now he's the chief minister. That ED and all are playing a role in ensuring defections.
That is accurate, but there's also the flip side where Rahul Gandhi will say ye vichardhara ki ladai hai, but also be in alliance with the Uddhav Thackeray. Now people can also see that there's no great vichardhara there, but to stop somehow, and that also now it seems half-heartedly, the rise of Modi.
No, I think they're just trying to survive. And I think on Rahul Gandhi, if you bring me there, I think the Congress actually is responsible for what has happened. Because at one point in the India alliance, it is, I mean, I know it. In those internal meetings, both Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal
proposed Kharge's
name. And the Congress responded as if it's some suspicious action by outside elements. They could have just, it was an iconic moment.
I think you wrote that they should have grabbed that moment.
They should have grabbed it. They said, these are two guys who actually have destroyed you in some ways. The AAP certainly had a role in hollowing out the Congress, when Modi comes in. They're saying, make Kharge the Prime Minister. And I've spoken they had a good reason why they were saying that. They had their own...
Let's imagine, let's war game this. Let's imagine that Mr. Kharge had been named as a prime ministerial contender to take on Mr. Modi. Would anything have been different?
Barkha, you just don't know with politics right now. You just don't know. Because arithmetically, there is a possibility if everybody hangs in together. Because the BJP at this point in the last election had 37% of the votes.
Yeah, but we have a first past the post system.
We have a first past the post system. So no. But you also have high concentrations of that vote, touching 55% in certain parts. And you have none in the south, in other zones. But the whole script starts. So I don't believe that we begin last year with the BJP being the inevitable winner. But once the psychology kicks in, that who's going to defeat them? It looked like they could be defeated.
So why did the Congress...
Otherwise, why would Bharatiya Janata Party take back somebody as two-faced as Nitish Kumar?
Yeah, I want to talk about exactly that. Before I come to why the BJP took Nitish Kumar, which could be to do with the EBC vote and so on. Why do you think the India Alliance dragged its feet on making Nitish Kumar convener? KC Tyagi, of course, even before Nitish Kumar switched, was very agitated that there was a decision taken that koi Pradhan Mantri candidate nahi declare hoga. So basically, each of them had their own little ego.
Ego was huge.
Yeah. And when Kharge's name is proposed, why do you think the Congress drags its feet on it?
I think the Congress has this split psychology. They don't want to say that Rahul is the candidate. They don't want to say it to Rahul. Rahul doesn't want to say he's the candidate. He probably believes he's not the candidate. He believes he's fighting a higher fight.
Yeah.
But
they don't want anyone else to be the
candidate. Now, in doing that, you're messing with all of us. You're messing with the public which wants an alternative. Whether you love BJP, everybody right-minded should want an opposition, right? In being so bizarre about it. Over Nitish, I believe, and this is not that somebody told me this happened, I believe that Mamata actually was the star player in fixing him. Nitish also spoke to her very rudely inside some of the meetings. One of the things, he snapped at people. He was in a cranky mood. Now this is what sources tell me that he, once he was just irritable. He said irritable things he spoke irritably to that fellow
DMK.
No, the
DMK over the language.
Then he said something to Mamta about our phone dekh rahi hai. Something. Then he said something to our Punjab Chief Minister that you are a kid in politics. Something to that effect. Not that he minded. He didn't mind.
Right.
But the thing is, he did all of this. So I think he did not. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've been told.
So what is in it for the BJP to take back a Nitish Kumar? What is in it for the BJP to take imports from the Congress who are all dynasts? The Prime Minister has now, of course, redefined nepotism and said that it's when one family dictates the policy of a party and not when two members of the same family are in politics. But is it that the BJP just wants to it's a take all prisoners approach? Or is there something larger going on? Is the BJP getting Congressified in some ways?
The BJP will never be Congressified. I know everybody loves this theory.
Yes.
The Congress can get BJP-fied. But the BJP has a very clear ideology that drives it. So look at the transformation. If you want to see an example of that, you just have to look to Assam.
Yeah.
And see Mr. Hemanta Biswa Sarma, a congressman.
Yeah.
Who is the right hand of the long-term Chief Minister, Tarun Gogoi.
But always felt that he never got space because of Tarun Gogoi. He is
completely trying to prove his ideological credentials. There's like a new converts do, that we are holier than thou. He's completely at it. So those who imagine that some of these guys are going to go in and nothing in India, nothing in our dualism approach to life and everything is absolute. Within the Bharatiya Janata Party, first of all, we're talking about such a vast country.
Yeah.
And we're talking about such a range of leadership. But within the Bharatiya Janata Party, they are guided by a certain ideological motive, ideological direction and civilizational project. Within that, I remember I remember Mr. I don't know what exactly, one of the personalities of the RSS, writing about how Hindus and Muslims must have syncretic composite culture and so on and so forth. But look, you can accommodate many ideas within your framework, but the truth is there is no representation for Muslims in the Bharatiya Janata Party. You had earlier mentioned the Christian outreach. I believe that's linked to long-term plans in the state of Kerala. It's not that there is a Christian outreach. It is certainly not happening in the Adivasi linked Central India belt, where the reason why a chief minister of the Bharatiya Janata Party is now a tribal, which is a good thing, is also because of the huge conflicts in those areas over conversion with Christians.
Yeah. So let's talk about the BJP and Muslims. Let's talk about that. You're saying that when it comes to the outreach with Christians, there's an electoral reasoning there, right? But there are 200 million Muslims in India, and they're not, they're integrated into culture, military, all aspects of life, industry, and there is the Constitution. There is the Constitution, there is the Article 14 of a right to equality, and representation indeed for the BJP for the first time to not have a Lok Sabha Muslim member of parliament and all the rest of that is a problem. Now here's what I want to understand from you. Where do you think it goes from here? There used to be the Shah Nawaz Hussain and the Sikandar Bhakt and the Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi. And the BJP would also turn around and argue, or BJP supporters would turn around and argue that when we do field Muslims, they're dismissed as Sarkari Muslims, they're dismissed as token Muslims. Yeah. Muslims don't vote for us. Do you see that changing? Because if you're a Muslim today, at some point you want to have a conversation with your MLA, your MP or corporator. You don't want to be a disengaged citizen. It is as much your right to engage with your government as anybody else's.
So, right now we're still in the midst of ideological processes that villainize Muslims, and also you see actions against them. It's not that you don't have
bulldozers.
Bulldozers. I'm talking, look, in Uttarakhand, there are a lot of accounts of certain demolitions happening there, targeting Muslims. This is what I read in in the news. And
so they argue that it's court obtained.
And
In
you
every
have-
bulldozer demolition,
in every-
there is a
an
court order or an administrative order that they can fall back on.
Yeah, but like in a part of Delhi where I live now, the matter has gone to the courts that there was no order, or the people were not shown the order that a mosque should be demolished, a 600-year-old mosque. So there was that's actually been entered in the courts. So within all this chaos, you have certain evidence of certain purpose, indifference to Muslim lives, indifference to their properties, possibly a hostility towards madarsas and mosques. You have that. I'm not saying the Prime Minister at the top is plotting it, but there are foot soldiers who feel empowered today. You have a certain articulation by chief ministers about Mias, which is a derogatory word for Bangladeshis in Bengali-speaking as in people who live in Assam. I would not even call them Bangladeshis because some of them have their documents. So you have all of these things happening. However, there is an interesting point that you raise, and it's complex because if you look at it, the BJP has been able to live with transactional arrangements with Christians in Goa, in the Northeast. That's an interesting development. Now, that's a minority, but so there's beef available.
Yeah.
So you get into a transactional arrangement with this small minority in India. Even though there are also incidents that happen, there is conflict over alleged conversion in the tribal belts of central India. The Muslim community poses a greater challenge for the Bharatiya Janata Party because much of their ideological material is historically against Muslims. If you read the old ideologues of the Bharatiya Janata Party, a lot of it is positioning about Muslims. So it presents a larger ideological problem for them. And a lot of the cadres are raised in a climate of hate of Muslims. Yet, it must be acknowledged that in India, you do have certain Muslims who manage. You'll have stars and you'll have cricketers and so on and so forth. But that still cannot take away from the fact that the people in the community are targeted. That is a reality today. But that happens. So it's a dilemma for the future.
And you do all of this, and then you see the outreach with Pasmanda Muslims in particular. How do you understand that?
I'm not sure whether that'll work this time, but again, I don't know because I have to say one has to watch this evolution.
We don't know. We simply don't know.
There are people who want to have a transactional relationship with whosoever is in power. And so it's not just members of other parties like old congressmen who are suddenly going over to the BJP. Even members of the Muslim community, they have something to lose. Those who have something to lose.
And transactional is a negative word. I'm just thinking that if I'm a citizen, let's say my first preference hasn't won the elections, or I've tried 3 times to vote for a party, it never wins, right? At some point, I might think that as a citizen, I want a voice in the system. I want to be heard. I want to engage with my administration, with all the units of government. Maybe it's time for me to stop backing the losing horse.
I think you have a point there, but the point is the BJP does not have space for Muslims also.
That's why I'm asking you again and again about the UP Pasmanda Muslim experiment, because I'm curious to see how it evolves.
We'll all see how it evolves, and I'm sure that is because in UP Muslims are so completely alienated now from politics because, even that Azam Khan episode, what's happened in Rampur and so on. So, but there will be a section which has something to lose. The word has to be transactional right now.
Okay.
It is transactional that I have to protect my property, my land, my business. I have to negotiate with whosoever is in power.
Isn't it also that there are very few political inclusive alternatives that have come up as an alternative? So let's say there was a time when you said Mayawati. Mayawati was a Dalit leader. If Kharge had been named as the Prime Minister candidate, he was a Dalit leader. There is no, at least I can't think of anybody, there is no Muslim leader who today could get up and say, I represent the community in an inclusive, modern, contemporary, aspirational way.
I think one of the great things about the Muslim community in India, and they're very diverse.
Yes, there's no monolithic Muslim.
There's no monolithic Muslim. is that they have always, many of them have voted for non-Muslims.
That's right.
They have seen
They have not felt the need for a Muslim.
Yes. So in that sense, Owaisi is different because he represents the old Hyderabad tradition.
That's right.
And it's a safe seat for him. He's a very, very articulate MP. I'm not taking that away from him. He articulates certain points in Parliament phenomenally. So, but that is not the usual trend. Lalu Prasad Yadav and Tejasvi Yadav are the Muslim leaders in Bihar. And in Uttar Pradesh it was divided. It was very much divided, and it's not so categorical as it is with the Bihar Yadavs. I think it would have depended candidate to candidate. Mayawati also used to get some. So currently in Maharashtra, let's just go state by state, I think they would be voting strangely for Uddhav in a large number because there's been a subtle transformation in the articulation of the Shiv Sena and Congress and so on and so forth. So this is a good thing that Muslims have not found it necessary to vote for their community. They might be the only people who do that.
Yeah, because caste groups often vote for their caste.
Your whole politics is caste will sort of, you're putting up a Jat to get Jats and you put up Yadavs to get Yadavs. But Muslims have always had faith in that. So I think that's very, very necessary. I think the Bharatiya Janata Party right now has tactics which change
depending on the situation
and region. In Kerala, there might be a tactic of talking to the Christians. In UP, there might be a tactic of talking to the Pasmandas. It might be a tactic to split Muslims on caste lines and so on and so forth. But I don't think that they have opened up their
cards yet.
No, they have not opened up their doors to Muslims in any real way. Because a lot of the rhetoric, a lot of the big policies are about Muslims. So, even take the Uniform Civil Code, okay? Now, I agree that the Muslim personal laws are not good. I've written about it also already. I wrote about it.
I mean, I would support a progressive Uniform Civil Code as a woman. Like, I think that on the basis of gender, there is so much inequality. Yes. But obviously, I don't support like these crazy proposals like this live-in regulation of live-in.
Yes, but the point is that the motivation with which it is done now is only about Muslims. It's not about reforming everything. You keep tribals out. Why? You exclude tribals because they're your vote bank and they have customary law and you don't want to alienate the tribal men, and they only pass property on to men. So all these things are so complicated that that's why I don't think that they have opened up there's any real attempt to bring Muslims into the fold, to reassure them as citizens, to make them feel. I think Muslims are still the target. They're still the face against which the BJP positions its campaigning.
So you're saying it still defines a lot of its rhetoric against what it was once called appeasement politics.
Yes, and it may not be today. If you watch, the Prime Minister will not do so.
Yeah,
he will not do so now. At this point in his evolution, but others are doing it. There are other chief ministers who say things, So So I think that is the issue.
Let me end by, you spoke about 100 years of the RSS that is imminent. And your book talks a lot about the tensions between Vajpayee and the RSS. The RSS at one point vetoed Jaswant Singh as finance minister. Then I remember that time when Vajpayee went to the United States of America and he described himself as a Swayam Sevak, and it was such a big headline.
Yeah.
Today it would not even get noticed. It would just be taken for granted that Modi, as you said, is a product of the RSS. But if you had to look at the relationships of the two prime ministers with the RSS, right? How do you look at those relationships?
See, I had much more of a visual insight into watching what used to go on during the Vajpayee era. So they used to keep getting annoyed with Vajpayee, the RSS chiefs. So they used to land up on him because Vajpayee, due to age and all, he was.
Yes.
They used to land up on him and they used to have these meetings. And then after one meeting, he would suddenly give a slightly ideological comment.
Yeah.
Because they were always targeting his Jaswant, and he had a principal secretary called Brajesh Mishra.
Yes.
He was in their sides. The RSS guys were permanently annoyed with him. In the case of Modi, I don't have any visual sights to see anything, but I believe that Modi he's on top. No RSS is going to come and scold him. The equations
But
are...
you've also written and researched extensively of how Modi is the message, yes, but the RSS enables the success of that message.
They do. No, but it goes both ways.
And the RSS has never withdrawn their support from that project, because why would they?
No, they haven't, because they've gained so much.
And
Modi
all
has
of-
got them closer to de facto Hindu Rashtra. The reason I say that is because it's not legally a Hindu Rashtra, but it appears to be. There is so much of time on religious ceremony by the state. The state invests in religious rituals and so on and so forth. The RSS has gained so much from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi would know that. So I have no doubt. And if you also, actually, if you follow Modi's rhetoric very carefully in an analytical framework, so because there's so much talk about caste now, and it has been, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is from the backward caste, but it is important to say this, that he has never played backward caste politics. He rose in Gujarat as a face of Hindutva. Backward caste politics, if you look at it, requires that you represent your caste group, which is a large caste group, and then you have plus minorities plus another caste. Let's take the social base of Jayant Chaudhary, who has just shifted into the NDA. He's the grandson of Charan Singh. What is his social dynamic? Jats plus Muslims, not Dalits, So now the Muslim factor is a bit iffy. And why have they taken him? Because it just punctures the other side. Not that it brings anything over to the BJP. BJP has been defeating Jayant Chaudhary and his father for the last 2 elections.
Yeah.
But it punctures, it takes the wind out of the sails of the other side. That's what they've achieved over there. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and even his rhetoric that there are 5 castes in India, the poor, the women, the young, he has always, in his own way, he articulates in his own way, he speaks the ideological language of the RSS, and we must never forget that before his journey as in mass politics began, the RSS had chosen him at a very young age to be what is called the Sangathan Mantri, the organizing secretary. That's why he came to Delhi. That's when everyone first met him.
That's right.
He was in charge of the whole organization of the Bharatiya Janata Party. So for those who imagine that he's just a mass speaker and he makes a speech every day, which seems to be the situation right now, his origins lie in understanding organization, polling booth. What does a Sangathan Mantri do?
Yeah.
They determine how to outreach, how to dominate the electoral system also.
Yeah.
So that is how he comes into politics from the RSS. So I think he has never spoken exclusively about caste. Maybe he has, if I'm being mistaken, but he has always projected himself as a Hindutva leader initially. And now he says that he does not accept this caste as divisive, and it's this, and he talks about youth and women and so on and so forth. So the RSS has no reason to complain about him, and they can't. He's on top.
That's right.
He's the boss.
Well, we'll end on that note, but at this year we live in interesting times. Saba Naqvi, your latest book is The Saffron Storm, looking at politics from Vajpayee to Modi. Enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Barkha.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.